Hello, and welcome to Shakespeare Project LA. Our reading today is Henry VI, Part 3, and our players are Jason Rennie, Chris Klein, Richard Conley, Taylor Marr, Christopher Carbo, Ron Dorn, Megan Wells, Dave Demke, Nima Rad, Mark Tracy, Emily Redmond Hall, Julie Grossman, Elizabeth Juvenal, Nancy Pasquale, Spencer Frederick, Hadley Hulka, and I'm Mary Carrick. As the War of the Roses reaches a fever pitch, we see a reoccurring theme. The primary relationship, father, mother, son, and daughter, are played out with disastrous results. The cruelest cut to dishonor a parent and a parent's bitter attempt to protect their child. All is fair in love and war until somebody gets hurt, and all of the hurt is personal. An anonymous father and son are the visceral reminder that we are all human and mortal, and some mistakes we can't take back. So sit back and follow the unfolding saga of William Shakespeare's Henry VI, Part 3.
Act 1, Scene 1, London, the Parliament House. Enter Richard Plantagenet, Duke of York, his sons Edward and Richard, along with the Duke of Norfolk, Marquess of Montague, and his brother, the Earl of Warwick, all wearing the white rose.
I wonder how the king escaped our hands.
While we pursued the horsemen of the north, he slyly stole away and left his men. Whereat the great lord of Northumberland, whose warlike ears could never brook a retreat, cheered up the drooping army, and himself, Lord Clifford and Lord Stafford, all abreast, charged our main battle's front, and breaking in, were by the swords of common soldiers slain.
Lord Stafford's father, Duke of Buckingham, is either slain or wounded dangerous. I cleft his beaver with a downright blow. That this is true, father, behold his blood.
And, brother, here's the Earl of Wiltshire's blood, whom I encountered as the battles joined.
Speak thou for me, and tell them what I did.
Richard hath best deserved of all my sons. But is your grace dead, my lord of Somerset?
Such hope have all the line of John of Gaunt.
Thus do I hope to shake King Henry's head.
And so do I, victorious Prince of York, before I see thee seated in that throne which now the House of Lancaster usurps. I vow by heaven, these eyes shall never close. This is the palace of the fearful king, and this the regal seat. Possess it, York, for this is thine, and not King Henry's heirs.
Assist me then, sweet Warwick, and I will. For hither we have broken in by force.
We'll all assist you. He that flies, die.
Thanks, gentle Norfolk. Stay by me, my lords. And soldiers, stay and lodge by me this night.
And when the king comes, offer him no violence, unless he seek to thrust you out perforce.
The Queen this day here holds her parliament, but little thinks we shall be of her counsel. By words or blows, here, let us win our right.
Armed as we are, let's stay within this house.
The bloody parliament shall this be called, unless Plantagenet, Duke of York, be king, and bashful Henry deposed, whose cowardice hath made us bywords to our enemies.
Then leave me not, my lords. Be resolute. I mean to take possession of my right.
Neither the king nor he that loves him best, the proudest he that holds up Lancaster, dares stir a wing if Warwick shakes his bells. I'll plant Plantagenet. Root him up who dares. Resolve thee, Richard. Claim the English crown.
My lords, look where the sturdy rebel sits, e'en in the chair of state. Belike he means, backed by the power of Warwick, that false peer, to aspire unto the crown and reign as king. Earl of Northumberland, he slew thy father, and thine, Lord Clifford, and you both have vowed revenge on him, his sons, his favourites, and his friends.
If I be not, heavens be revenged on me.
A hope thereof makes Clifford mourn in steel.
What? Shall we suffer this? Let's pluck him down. My heart for anger burns. I cannot brook it.
Be patient, gentle Earl of Westmoreland.
Patience is for poltrons such as he. He durst not sit there had your father lived. My gracious lord, here in the Parliament, let us assail the family of York.
Well hast thou spoken, cousin, be it so.
Ah, but know you not the city favours them, and they have troops of soldiers at their beck?
But when the Duke is slain, they'll quickly fly.
Far be the thought of this from Henry's heart, to make a shambles of the Parliament House. A cousin of Exeter, frowns, words, and threats shall be the war that Henry means to use. Thou factious Duke of York, descend my throne, and kneel for grace and mercy at my feet. I am thy sovereign.
I am thine.
For shame, come down. He made thee Duke of York.
It was my inheritance, as the earldom was.
Thy father was a traitor to the crown.
Exeter, thou art a traitor to the crown in following this usurping Henry.
Whom should he follow but his natural king?
Oh, true, Clifford. That's Richard, Duke of York.
Shall I stand and thou sit in my throne?
It must, and shall be so. Content thyself.
Be Duke of Lancaster. Let him be king.
He is both king and Duke of Lancaster, and that the Lord of Westmoreland shall maintain.
And Warwick shall disprove it. You forget that we are those which chased you from the field and slew your fathers, and with colors spread, marched through the city to the palace gates.
Yes, Warwick, I remember it to my grief. And by his soul, thou and thy house shall rue it.
Plantagenet, of thee and these thy sons, thy kinsmen and thy friends, I'll have more lives than drops of blood were in my father's veins.
Urge it no more, lest that instead of words I send thee, Warwick, such a messenger as shall revenge his death before I stir.
Poor Clifford. How I scorn his worthless threats.
Will we show our title to the crown? If not, our swords shall plead it in the field.
What title hast thou, traitor to the crown? Thy father was, as thou art, Duke of York, thy grandfather Roger Mortimer, Earl of March. I am the son of Henry V, who made the Dauphin and the French to stoop and seized upon their towns and provinces.
Talk not of France. Thou hast lost it all.
The Lord Protector lost it, and not I. When I was crowned, I was but 9 months old.
You are old enough now, and yet methinks you lose. Father, tear the crown from the usurper's head.
Sweet father, do so. Set it on your head.
Good brother, as thou lovest and honorest ours, let's fight it out, and not stand cavilling thus.
Sound drums and trumpets, and the king will fly.
Sons, peace.
Peace thou, and give King Henry leave to speak.
Plantagenet shall speak first. Hear him, lords, and be you silent and attentive too, for he that interrupts him shall not live.
Think'st thou that I will leave my kingly throne wherein my grandsire and my father sat? No! First shall war unpeople this, my realm. I and their colors, often born in France, and now in England, to her heart's great sorrow, shall be my winding sheet. Why, thank you, lords, my title's good, better than his.
Prove it, Henry, and thou shalt be king.
Henry IV by conquest got the crown.
'Twas by rebellion against his king.
I know not what to say. My title's weak. Oh, tell me, may not a king adopt an heir?
What then?
And if he may, then am I lawful king. For Richard, in view of many lords, resigned the crown to Henry the Fourth, whose heir my father was, and I am his.
He rose against him, being his sovereign, and made him to resign his crown perforce.
Suppose, my lords, he did it unconstrained. Think you 'twere prejudicial to his crown?
No, for he could not so resign his crown, but that the next heir should succeed and reign.
Art thou against us, Duke of Exeter?
His is the right, and therefore pardon me.
Why whisper you, my lords, and answer not?
My conscience tells me he is lawful king.
All will revolt from me and turn to him.
Plantagenet, for all the claim thou layest, think not that Henry shall be so deposed.
Deposed he shall be, in despite of all.
Thou art deceived. 'Tis not thy southern power of Essex, Norfolk, Suffolk, nor of Kent, which makes thee thus presumptuous and proud, can set the Duke up in despite of me.
King Henry, be thy title right or wrong, Lord Clifford vows to fight in thy defense. May the ground gape and swallow me alive, where I shall kneel to him that slew my father.
Clifford, how thy words revive my heart.
Henry of Lancaster, resign thy crown. What mutter you, or what conspire you, lords?
Do right unto this princely Duke of York, or I will fill the house with armed men, and over the chair of state where now he sits, write up his title with usurping blood.
My lord of Warwick, hear but one word. Let me for this my lifetime reign as king.
Confirm the crown to me and to mine heirs, and thou shalt reign in quiet while thou livest.
I am content. Richard Plantagenet, enjoy the kingdom after my decease.
What wrong is this unto the prince your son?
What good is this to England and himself?
Base, fearful, and despairing Henry,
How hast thou injured both thyself and us?
I cannot stay to hear these articles.
Nor I.
Come, cousin, let us tell the queen these news.
Farewell, faint-hearted and degenerate king, in whose cold blood no spark of honor bides.
Be thou a prey unto the house of York, and die in bands for this unmanly deed.
In dreadful war mayst thou be overcome, or live in peace abandoned and despised.
Turn this way, Henry, and regard them not.
They seek revenge and therefore will not yield.
Exeter.
Why should you sigh, my lord?
Not for myself, Lord Warwick, but my son, whom I unnaturally shall disinherit, be it as it may. I here entail the crown to thee and to thine heirs forever, conditionally that here thou take an oath to cease this civil war, and whilst I live to honor me as thy king and sovereign, and neither by treason nor hostility to seek to put me down and reign thyself.
This oath I willingly take and will perform.
Long live King Henry. Plantagenet, embrace him.
And long live thou, and these thy forward sons.
Now York and Lancaster are reconciled.
Accursed be he that seeks to make them foes.
Farewell, my gracious lord. I'll to my castle.
And I will keep London with my soldiers.
And I to Norfolk with my followers.
And I under the sea, from whence I came.
And I with grief and sorrow to the court.
Here comes the queen, whose looks bewray her anger. I'll steal away.
Exeter, so will I.
Nay, go not from me. I will follow thee.
Be patient, gentle queen, and I will stay.
Who can be patient in such extremes? Ah, wretched man, would I had died a maid, and never seen thee, never borne thee a son, seeing thou hast proved so unnatural a father. Hath he deserved to lose his birthright thus? Hadst thou but loved him half as well as I, or felt the pain for which I did for him once, or nourished him as I did with my blood, thou wouldst have left thy dearest heart blood there, rather than have made the savage Duke thine heir and disinherited thine own son.
Father, you cannot disinherit me. If you be king, why should not I succeed?
Pardon me, Margaret. Pardon me, sweet son. The Earl of Warwick and the Duke enforced me.
Enforced thee? Art thou king and will be forced? I shame to hear thee speak. Ah, timorous wretch, thou hast undone thyself, thy son, and me, and given the house of York such head as thou shalt reign, but by their sufferance, to entail him and his heirs unto the crown. What is it but to make thy sepulchre and creep into it far before thy time? Warwick is chancellor and the ward of Calais. Stern Falconbridge commands the narrow seas, and Duke is made protector of the realm. And yet, shall thou be saved? Such safety finds the trembling lamb environed with wolves. Had I been there, which am a silly woman, the soldiers should have tossed me on their pikes before I would have granted to that act. But thou preferest thy life before thine honor. And seest thou dost, I here divorce myself, both from thy table, Henry, and thy bed, until the Act of Parliament be repealed, whereby my son is disinherited. The northern lords that have forsworn thy colors will follow mine, if once they see them spread. And spread they shall be, to thy foul disgrace and utter ruin of the house of York. Thus do I leave thee. Come, son, let's away. Our army is ready. Come, we'll after them.
Stay, gentle Margaret, and hear me speak.
Thou hast spoke too much already. Get thee gone.
Gentle son Edward, thou wilt stay with me?
I to be murdered by his enemies.
When I return with victory from the field, I'll see your grace. Till then, I'll follow her.
Come away, son. We may not linger thus.
Poor queen. How love to me and to her son hath made her break out into terms of rage. Avenged may she be on that hateful duke, whose haughty spirit, winged with desire, will cost my crown, and like an empty eagle tire on the flesh of me and of my son. The loss of those 3 lords torments my heart. I'll write unto them and entreat them fair. Come, cousin, you shall be the messenger.
And I hope I shall reconcile them all.
Act 1, Scene 2, Yorkshire, a room in Sandal Castle. Enter Richard, Edward, and Montague, all wearing the white rose.
Brother, though I be youngest, give me leave.
No, I can play the better orator.
I have reason strong and forcible.
Why, how now, sons and brother at a strife? What is your quarrel? How began it first?
No quarrel, but a slight contention.
About what?
About that which concerns your grace and us. The crown of England, father, which is yours.
Mine, boy? Not till King Henry be dead.
Your right depends not on his life or death.
Now you are heir. Therefore enjoy it now. By giving the House of Lancaster leave to breathe, it will outrun you, father, in the end.
I took an oath that he should quietly reign.
but for a kingdom any oath may be broken, I would break 1,000 oaths to reign 1 year.
No, God forbid your grace should be forsworn.
I shall be if I claim by open war.
I'll prove the contrary if you'll hear me speak.
Thou canst not, son. It is impossible.
An oath is of no moment, being not took before a true and lawful magistrate, that hath authority over him that swears. Henry had none, but did usurp the place. Then, seeing 'twas he that made you to depose, your oath, my lord, is vain and frivolous. Therefore, to arms, my lord. And father, do but think how sweet a thing it is to wear a crown, within whose circuit is Elysium, and all that poets feign of bliss and joy. Why do we linger thus? I cannot rest until the white rose that I wear be dyed even in the lukewarm blood of Henry's heart.
Richard, enough. I will be king, or die. Brother, thou shalt to London presently, and wet on Warwick to this enterprise. Thou, Richard, shalt to the Duke of Norfolk, and tell him privily of our intent. You, Edward, shall unto my Lord Cobham, with whom the Kentishmen will willingly rise. In them I trust, for they are soldiers, witty, courteous, liberal, full of spirit. And while you are thus employed, what resteth more but that I seek occasion how to rise, and yet the king not privy to my drift, nor any of the house of Lancaster. But stay, what news? Why comest thou in such post?
The queen with all the northern earls and lords intend here to besiege you in your castle. She is hard by with 20,000 men, and therefore fortify your hold, my lord.
Aye, with my sword. What? Thinkst thou that we fear them? Edward and Richard, you shall stay with me. My brother Montague shall post to London. Let noble Warwick, Cobham, and the rest, whom we have left protectors of the king, with powerful policy strengthen themselves, and trust not simple Henry, nor his oaths.
Brother, I go. I'll win them, fear it not. And thus most humbly I do take my leave.
Sir John, Sir Hugh Mortimer, mine uncles, you are come to Sandal in a happy hour. The army of the queen mean to besiege us.
She shall not need. We'll meet her in the field.
What? With 5,000 men?
Aye, with 5,000 for a need. A woman's general, what should we fear?
I hear their drums. Let's set our men in order and issue forth and bid them battle straight.
5 men to 20. Though the odds be great, I doubt not, uncle, of our victory. Many a battle have I won in France, when as the enemy hath been 10 to 1. Why should I not now have the like success?
Act 1, Scene 3. The battlefield between Sandal Castle and Wakefield. Enter Rutland and his tutor.
Ah, whither shall I fly to escape their hands? Ah, tutor, look where bloody Clifford comes.
Chaplain away, thy priesthood saves thy life. As for the brat of that accursed duke, whose father slew my father, he shall die.
And I, my lord, will bear him company.
Soldiers away with him.
Ah, Clifford, murder not this innocent child, lest thou be hated both of God and man.
How now, is he dead already, or is it fear that makes him close his eyes? I'll open them.
So looks the pent-up lion o'er the wretch that trembles under his devouring paws. And so he walks, insulting o'er his prey. And so he comes to rend his limbs asunder. Oh, gentle Clifford, kill me with thy sword and not with such a cruel, threatening look. Sweet Clifford, hear me speak before I die. I am too mean a subject for thy wrath. Be thou revenged on men and let me live.
In vain thou speakst, poor boy. My father's blood hath stopped the passage where thy word should enter.
Then let my father's blood open it again. He is a man, and Clifford, cope with him.
Had I thy brethren here, their lives and thine were not revenge sufficient for me. No, if I had digged up thy forefathers' graves, and hung their rotten coffins up in chains, it could not slack mine ire, nor ease my heart. The sight of any of the house of York is as a fury to torment my soul. Until I rout out their accursed line, and leave not one alive, I live in hell. Therefore...
Oh! Let me pray before I take my death. To thee I pray, sweet Clifford, pity me.
Such pity as my rapier's point affords.
I never did thee harm. Why wilt thou slay me?
Thy father hath.
But 'twas ere was I born. Thou hast one son. For his sake pity me. Lest in revenge thereof sith God is just, he be as miserably slain as I. Let me live in prison all my days, and when I give occasion of offense, then let me die. For now thou hast no cause.
No cause? Thy father slew my father, therefore die!
Defacient laudissuma sit statue.
Plantagenet, I come, Plantagenet. And this my son's blood, cleaving to my blade, shall rust upon my weapon till thy blood, congealed with this, do make me wipe off both.
Act 1, Scene 4, another part of the battlefield. Enter Richard, Duke of York, wearing the white rose.
The army of the Queen hath got the field. My uncles both are slain in rescuing me, and all my followers to the eager foe turn back and fly like ships before the wind, or lambs pursued by hunger-starved wolves. My sons, God knows what hath bechanced them, but this I know. They have demeaned themselves like men born to renown by life or death. 3 times did Richard make a lane to me, and thrice cried, "Courage, father, fight it out!" And full as oft came Edward to my side, with purple falchion painted to the hilt in blood of those that had encountered him. And when the hardiest warriors did retire, Richard cried, "Charge, and give no foot of ground!" and cried, "A crown, or else a glorious tomb, a scepter, or an earthly sepulchre." With this we charged again, but out, alas, we budged again, as I have seen a swan with bootless labor swim against the tide and spend her strength with overmatching waves. Hark. The fatal followers do pursue, and I am faint and cannot fly their fury. And were I strong, I would not shun their fury. The sands are numbered that makes up my life. Here must I stay, and here my life must end. Come, bloody Clifford, rough Northumberland. I dare your quenchless fury to more rage. I am your butt, and I abide your shot.
Yield to our mercy, proud Plantagenet.
Aye, 'tis such mercy as his ruthless arm with downright payment showed unto my father. Now Phaeton hath tumbled from his car, and made an evening at the noontide prick.
My ashes, as the phoenix, may bring forth a bird that will revenge upon you all. And in that hope I throw mine eyes to heaven, scorning whate'er you can inflict me with. Why come you not? What? Multitudes and fear.
So cowards fight when they can fly no further. So doves do peck the falcon's piercing talons. So desperate thieves, all hopeless of their lives, breathe out invectives against their officers.
Oh, Clifford! But bethink thee once again, and in thy thought o'errun my former time. And if thou canst for blushing view this face, and bite thy tongue that slanders him with cowardice, whose frown hath made thee faint and fly ere thus.
I will not bandy with thee word for word, but buckle with thee blows twice 2 for 1.
Hold, valiant Clifford, for 1,000 causes. I would prolong a while the traitor's life. Wrath makes him deaf. Speak thou, Northumberland.
Hold, Clifford. Do not honor him so much to prick thy finger, though to wound his heart. What valor were it when a cur doth grin for one to thrust his hand between his teeth, when he might spurn him with his foot away? It is war's prize to take all vantages, and 10 to 1 is no impeach of valor.
Aye, so strives the woodcock with the gin.
So doth the coney struggle with the net.
So triumph thieves upon their conquered booty. So true men yield with robbers so o'ermatched.
What would your grace have done unto him now?
Brave warriors, Clifford and Northumberland. Come, make him stand upon this molehill here, that wrought mountains with outstretched arms, yet parted but the shadow with his hand. What? Was it you that would be England's king? Was it you that reveled in our parliament and made a preachment of your high descent? Where are your massive sons to back you now? The wanton Edward and the lusty George. And where's that valiant, crooked-back prodigy, Dickie, your boy, that with his grumbling voice was wanted to cheer his dad in mutinies? Or with the rest? Where's your darling Rutland? Look, York, I have stained this napkin with the blood that valiant Clifford, with his rapier point, made issue from the bosom of the boy. And if thine eyes can water for his death, I give thee this to dry thy cheek withal. Alas, poor York, but that I hate thee deadly, I should lament thy miserable state. I prithee grieve to make me merry, York. What hath thy fiery heart so parched thine entrails that not a tear can fall for Rutland's death? Why art thou patient, man? Thou shouldst be mad, and I to make thee mad do mock thee thus. Stamp, raven, fret, that I may sing and dance. Thou wouldst be feed, I see, to make me sport. York cannot speak unless he wear a crown. A crown for York. And lords, bow low to him. Hold you his hands whilst I do set it on. Ay, marry, sir, now looks he like a king. Aye, this is he that took King Henry's chair, and this is he was his adopted heir. But how is it that great Plantagenet is crowned so soon and broke his solemn oath? As I bethink me, you should not be king till our King Henry hath shook hands with death. And will you pale your head in Henry's glory and rob his temples of the diadem now in his life against your holy oath? Oh, 'tis a fault too unpardonable. Off with the crown, and with the crown his head. And whilst we breathe, take time to do him dead.
That is my office for my father's sake.
Nay, stay, let's hear the orisons he makes.
She-wolf of France, but worse than wolves of France, whose tongue more poisons than the adder's tooth. How ill-beseeming is it in thy sex to triumph like an Amazonian trull upon their woes whom fortune captivates. But that thy face is vizard-like, unchanging, made impudent with use of evil deeds, I would essay, proud queen, to make thee blush, to tell thee whence thou camest, of whom derived were shame enough to shame thee, wert thou not shameless. Thy father bears the type of King of Naples, of both the Sicils and Jerusalem, yet not so wealthy as an English yeoman. Hath that poor monarch taught thee to insult? It needs not, nor it boots thee not, proud queen, unless the adage must be verified, that beggars mounted run their horse to death. 'Tis beauty that doth oft make women proud, but God, he knows thy share thereof is small. 'Tis virtue that doth make them most admired. The contrary doth make thee wondered at. 'Tis government that makes them seem divine. The want thereof makes thee abominable. Thou art as opposite to every good as the Antipodes are unto us, or as the South to the Septentrian. Oh, tiger's heart wrapped in a woman's hide. How couldst thou drain the lifeblood of the child to bid the father wipe his eyes withal, and yet be seen to bear a woman's face? Women are soft, mild, pitiful, and flexible. Thou, stern, obdurate, flinty, rough, remorseless, bidst thou me rage? Why, now thou hast thy wish! Wouldst have me weep? Why, now thou hast thy will. For raging wind blows up incessant showers, and when the rage allays, the rain begins. These tears are my sweet Rutland's obsequies, and every drop cries vengeance for his death against thee, fell Clifford, and thee, false Frenchwoman.
Through me. But his passions moves me so that hardly can I check my eyes from tears.
That face of his, the hungry cannibals would not have touched, would not have stained with blood. But you are more inhuman, more inexorable, 10 times more than the tigers of Hyrcania. See, ruthless queen, a hapless father's tears. This cloth thou dipst in blood of my sweet boy, and I with tears do wash the blood away. Keep thou the napkin and go boast of this. And if thou tell'st the heavy story right, upon my soul the hearers will shed tears. Yea, even my foes will shed fast falling tears and say, alas, it was a piteous deed. There, take the crown, and with the crown my curse. And in thy need such comfort come to thee as now I reap at thy too cruel hand. Hard-hearted Clifford, take me from the world, my soul to heaven, my blood upon your heads.
Had he been slaughterman to all my kin, I should not for my life but weep with him, to see how inly sorrow gripes his soul.
What, weeping right, my lord Northumberland? Think but upon the wrong he did us all, and that will quickly dry thy melting tears.
Here's for my oath.
Ah!
And here's for my father's death.
And here's to right our gentle-hearted king! Ah!
Open thy gate of mercy, gracious God. My soul flies through these wounds to seek out thee.
off with his head and set it on York gates, so York may overlook the town of York.
Act 2, Scene 1, Herefordshire, a plain near Mortimer's Cross. Enter Edward, Richard, and their army, all wearing the white rose.
I wonder how our princely father scaped, or whether he be scaped away or no from Clifford's and Northumberland's pursuit. Had he been ta'en, we should have heard the news. Had he been slain, we should have heard the news. Or had he scaped, methinks we should have heard the happy tidings of his good escape. How fares my brother? Why is he so sad?
I cannot joy until I be resolved where our right valiant father is become. I saw him in the battle range about, and watched him, how he singled Clifford forth. Methought he bore him in the thickest troop, as doth a lion in a herd of neat, or as a bear encompassed round with dogs, who, having pinched a few and made them cry, the rest stand all aloof and bark at him. So fared our father with his enemies. So fled his enemies, my warlike father. Methinks 'tis prize enough to be his son. See how the morning opes her golden gates, and takes her farewell of the glorious sun. How well resembles it to the prime of youth, trimmed like a younker prancing to his love.
Dazzle mine eyes, or do I see 3 sons?
3 glorious suns, each one a perfect sun, not separated with the racking clouds, but severed in a pale, clear, shining sky. See, they join, embrace, and seem to kiss, as if they vowed some league inviolable. And now they are but one lamp, one light, one sun. In this, the heaven figures some event.
'Tis wondrous strange, the like yet never heard of. I think it cites us, brother, to the field, that we, the sons of brave Plantagenet, each one already blazing by our meads, should, notwithstanding, join our lights together and overshine the earth as this the world. Whate'er it bodes, henceforward will I bear upon my target 3 fair shining sons.
Nay, bear 3 daughters. By your leave I speak it, your love the breeder better than the male. But what art thou whose heavy looks foretell some dreadful story hanging on thy tongue?
One that was a woeful looker on, when as the noble Duke of York was slain, your princely father and my loving lord.
Speak no more, for I have heard too much.
Say how he died, for I will hear it all.
Environed he was with many foes, and stood against them as the hope of Troy against the Greeks that would have entered Troy. But Hercules himself must yield to odds and many strokes, though with a little axe hews down and fells the hardest timbered oak. By many hands your father was subdued, but only slaughtered by the ireful arm of unrelenting Clifford and the queen, who crowned the gracious Duke in high despite, laughed in his face, and when with grief he wept, the ruthless queen gave him to dry his cheeks a napkin steeped in the harmless blood of sweet young Rutland, by rough Clifford slain. And after many scorns, many foul taunts, they took his head, and on the gates of York they set the same, and there it doth remain, the saddest spectacle that e'er I viewed.
Sweet Duke of York, our prop to lean upon, now thou art gone, we have no staff, no stay. Oh, Clifford, boisterous Clifford, thou hast slain the flower of Europe for his chivalry, and treacherously hast thou vanquished him, for hand to hand he would have vanquished thee. Now my soul's palace is become a prison. Ah, would she break from hence, that this my body might in the ground be closed up in rest, For never henceforth shall I joy again. Never, oh, never shall I see more joy.
I cannot weep, for all my body's moisture scarce serves to quench my furnace-burning heart. Nor can my tongue unload my heart's great burden. For self-same wind that I should speak withal is kindling coals that fires all my breast and burns me up with flames that tears would quench. To weep is to make less the depth of grief. Tears then for babes, blows and revenge for me. Richard, I bear thy name. I'll venge thy death or die renowned by attempting it.
His name that valiant duke hath left with thee. His dukedom and his chair with me is left.
Nay, if thou would be thy princely eagle's bird, show thy descent by gazing 'gainst the sun. For chair and dukedom, throne and kingdom say, either that is thine, or else thou wert not his.
How now, fair lords? What news abroad?
Great Lord of Warwick, if we should recount our baleful news, and at each word's deliverance stab poignards in our flesh till all were told, the words would add more anguish than the wounds. O valiant lord, the Duke of York is slain.
Oh, Warwick, that Plantagenet which held thee dearly as his soul's redemption is by the stern Lord Clifford done to death.
10 days ago I drowned these news in tears, and now to add more measure to your woes, I come to tell you things sith and befallen. After the bloody fray at Wakefield fought, where your brave father breathed his latest gasp, tidings as swiftly as the posts could run were brought me of your loss and his depart. I, then in London, keeper of the king, mustered my soldiers, gathered flocks of friends, marched toward St. Albans to intercept the queen, bearing the king in my behalf along. For by my scouts I was advertised that she was coming with full intent to dash our late decree in Parliament, touching King Henry's oath and your succession. Short tale to make, we at St. Albans met, our battles joined, and both sides fiercely fought. But whether 'twas the coldness of the king, who looked full gently on his warlike queen, that robbed my soldiers of their heated spleen, or whether 'twas report of her success, or more than common fear of Clifford's rigor, who thunders to his captives blood and death, I cannot judge. But to conclude with truth, their weapons like to lightning came and went. Our soldiers, like the night owl's lazy flight, or like an idle thresher with a flail, fell gently down, as if they struck their friends. I cheered them up with justice of our cause, with promise of high pay and great rewards, but all in vain, and they had no heart to fight. And we, in them, no hope to win the day. So that we fled, the king unto the queen, Lord George your brother, Norfolk and myself in haste, post-haste, are come to join with you. For in the marches, here we heard you were, making another head to fight again.
Where is the Duke of Norfolk, gentle Warwick? And when came George from Burgundy to England?
Some 6 miles off, the Duke is with the soldiers. And for your brother, he was lately sent from your kind aunt, Duchess of Burgundy, with aid of soldiers to this needful war.
'Twas odds belike when valiant Warwick fled. Oft have I heard his praises in pursuit, but never till now his scandal of retire.
My scandal? Richard, dost thou hear? For thou shalt know the strong right hand of mine can pluck the diadem from faint Henry's head and wring the awful scepter from his fist, where he is famous and as bold in war as he is famed for mildness, peace, and prayer.
I know it well, Lord Warwick, blame me not. 'Tis love I bear, thy glories make me speak. But in this troublous time, what's to be done? Shall we go throw away our coats of steel and wrap our bodies in black mourning gowns, numbering our Ave Marys with our beads? Or shall we, on the helmets of our foes, tell our devotion with revengeful arms? If for the last, say aye, and to it, lords.
Why, therefore Warwick came to seek you out, and therefore comes my brother Montague. Attend me, lords. The proud insulting queen, with Clifford and the hot Northumberland, and of their feather many more proud birds, have wrought the easy melting king like wax. He swore consent to your succession, his oath enrolled in the parliament, and now to London all the crew are gone, to frustrate both his oath and what beside may make against the house of Lancaster. Their power, I think, is 30,000 strong. Now, if the help of Norfolk and myself, with all the friends that thou, brave Earl of March, amongst the loving Welshmen, canst procure, will but amount to 25,000. Why, via, to London will we march, and once again bestride our foaming steeds, and once again cry, charge, upon our foes, but never once again turn back and fly.
Now methinks I hear great Warwick speak. Ne'er may he live to see a sunshine day that cries, retire if Warwick bids him stay.
Lord Warwick, on thy shoulder will I lean, and when thou failst, as God forbid the hour, must Edward fall, which peril heaven forfend.
No longer Earl of March, but Duke of York. The next degree is England's royal throne. For a king of England shalt thou be proclaimed in every borough as we pass along. And he that throws not up his cap for joy shall for the fault make forfeit of his head. King Edward, valiant Richard, Montague, stay we no longer dreaming of renown, but sound the trumpets and about our task.
Then, Clifford, were thy heart as hard as steel as thou hast shown it flinty by thy deeds, I come to pierce it, or to give thee mine.
Then strike up drums, God and St. George, for us!
How now, what news?
The Duke of Norfolk sends you word by me. The Queen is coming with a puissant host, and craves your company for speedy counsel.
Why, then it's swords. Brave warriors, let's away.
Act 2, Scene 2, Yorkshire before the town of York. Enter King Henry, Queen Margaret, Clifford, Northumberland, and the young Prince Edward, all wearing the red rose, the head of the Duke of York fixed on the walls above them.
Welcome, my lord, to this brave town of York. Yonder's the head of that arch enemy that sought to be encompassed with your crown. Doth not the object cheer your heart, my lord?
Aye, as the rocks cheer them that fear their wrack. To see this sight, it irks my very soul. Withhold revenge, dear God. 'Tis not my fault, nor wittingly have I infringed my vow.
My gracious liege, this too much lenity and harmful pity must be laid aside. To whom do lions cast their gentle looks? Not to the beast that would usurp their den. Whose hand is it that the forest bear doth lick? Not his that spoils her young before her face. Who scapes the lurking serpent's mortal sting? Not he that sets his foot upon her back. The smallest worm will turn, being trodden on, and doves will peck in safeguard of their brood. Ambitious York did level at thy crown, thou smiling while he knit his angry brows. He, but a duke, would have his son a king, and raise his issue like a loving sire. Thou, being a king, blessed with a goodly son, didst yield consent to disinherit him, which argued thee a most unloving father. Unreasonable creatures feed their young, and though men's face be fearful to their eyes, yet in protection of their tender ones, who hath not seen them, even with those wings which sometimes they have used with fearful flight, make war with him that climbed into their nest, offering their own lives in their young's defense. For shame, my liege, make them your precedent. Were it not pity that this goodly boy should lose his birthright by his father's fault? And long hereafter say unto his child, what my great-grandfather and great-grandsire got, my careless father fondly gave away. Oh, what a shame were this! Look on the boy, and let his manly face, which promiseth successful fortune, steel thy melting heart, to hold thine own and leave thine own with him.
For well hath Clifford played the orator, inferring arguments of mighty force. But, Clifford, tell me, didst thou never hear that things ill-got had ever bad success? And happy always was it for that son, whose father for his hoarding went to hell? I'll leave my son my virtuous deeds behind, and would my father had left me no more, for all the rest is held at such a rate as brings 1,000-fold more care to keep than in possession any jot of pleasure. Cousin York, would thy best friends did know how it did grieve my heart, thy head is here.
My lord, cheer up your spirits. Our foes are nigh, and this soft courage makes your followers faint. You promised knighthood to our forward son. Unsheathe your sword and dub him presently. Edward, kneel down.
Edward Plantagenet, arise, a knight, and learn this lesson. Draw thy sword in right.
My gracious father, by your kingly leave, I'll draw it as a parent to the crown, and in that quarrel, use it to the death.
Why, that is spoken like a two-word prince.
Royal Commander, be in readiness, for with a band of 30,000 men comes Warwick backing of the Duke of York, and in the towns, as they do march along, proclaims him king, and many fly to him. Derain your battle, for they are at hand.
I would your highness would depart the field. The queen hath best success when you are absent.
Aye, good my lord, and leave us to our fortune.
But that's my fortune too, therefore I'll stay.
Be it with resolution then to fight.
My royal father, cheer these noble lords, and hearten those that fight in your defense. Unsheathe your sword, good father. Cry Saint George!
Now, perjured Henry, wilt thou kneel for grace and set thy diadem upon my head, or bide the mortal fortune of the field?
Go rate thy minions, proud insulting boy. Becomes it thee to be thus bold in terms before thy sovereign and thy lawful king?
I am his king, and he should bow his knee. I was adopted heir by his consent. Since when his oath is broke, for as I hear, you that are king, though he do wear the crown, have caused him, by new act of parliament, to blot out me and put his own son in.
And reason too. Who should succeed the father but the son?
Are you there, butcher? Oh, I cannot speak.
Aye, Crookback, here I stand to answer thee, or any he, the proudest of any sort.
'Twas you that killed young Rutland, was it not?
Aye, and old York, and yet not satisfied.
For God's sake, lords, give signal to the fight.
What sayest thou, Henry? Wilt thou yield the crown?
Why, how now, long-tongued Warwick? Dare you speak? When you and I met at St. Albans last, your legs did better service than your hands.
Then 'twas my turn to fly, and now 'tis thine.
You said so much before, and yet you fled.
'Twas not your valor, Clifford, drove me thence.
No, nor your manhood that durst make you stay.
Northumberland, I hold thee reverently. Break off the parley, for scarce I can refrain the execution of my big swollen heart upon that Clifford, that cruel child killer.
I slew thy father, call'st thou him a child?
I, like a dastard and a treacherous coward, as thou didst kill our tender brother Rutland, but ere sunset I'll make thee curse the deed.
Have done with words, my lords, and hear me speak.
Defy them then, or else hold close thy lips.
I prithee, give no limits to my tongue. I am a king and privileged to speak.
My liege, the wound that bred this meeting here cannot be cured by words. Therefore be still.
Then, executioner, unsheathe thy sword. By him that made us all, I am resolved that Clifford's manhood lies upon his tongue.
Say, Henry, shall I have my right or no? 1,000 men have broke their fasts today, but ne'er shall dine unless thou yield.
If thou deny, their blood upon thy head. For York in justice puts his armor on.
If that be right, which Warwick says is right, there is no wrong, but everything is right.
Whoever got thee, there thy mother stands, for well I wot thou hast thy mother's tongue.
But thou art either like thy sire or dam, but like a foul misshapen stigmatic, marked by the destinies to be avoided, as venom toads or lizards' dreadful stings.
Iron of Naples, hid with English guilt, whose father bears the title of a king, as if a channel should be called the sea. Sham'st thou not, knowing whence thou art extraught, to let thy tongue detect thy base-born heart?
A wisp of straw were worth 1,000 crowns to make this shameless calic know herself. Helen of Greece was fairer far than thou, although thy husband may be little else. And never was Agamemnon's brother wronged by that false woman as this king by thee. His father rebelled in the heart of France and tamed the king and made the Dauphin stoop. And had he matched according to his state, he might have kept that glory to this day. But when he took a beggar to his bed and graced thy poor sire with his bridal day, even then that sunshine brewed a shower for him that washed his father's fortunes forth of France and heaped sedition on his crown at home. For what hath broached this tumult but thy pride? Hadst thou been meek, our title still had slept, and we, in pity of the gentle king, had slipped our claim until another age.
But when we saw our sunshine made thy spring, and that thy summer bred us no increase, we set the axe to thy usurping root, and though the edge hath something hit ourselves, yet know thou, since we have begun to strike, we'll never leave till we have hewn thee down, or bathed thy growing with our heated bloods.
And in this resolution I defy thee, not willing any longer conference, since thou deniedst the gentle king to speak. Sound trumpets! Let our bloody colors wave, and either victory or else a grave.
Stay, Edward!
No, wrangling woman, will no longer stay. These words will cost 10,000 lives this day.
Act 2, Scene 3, Yorkshire, a battlefield between Towton and Sexton. Enter Warwick, wearing the white rose.
And with toil as runners for the race, I lay me down a little while to breathe. For strokes received and many blows repaid have robbed my strong sinews of their strength. And spite of spite, needs must I rest a while.
Oh, gentle heaven, or strike ungentle death, for this world frowns and Edward's sun is clouded.
How now, my lord? What hap? What hope of good?
Our hap is loss, our hope but sad despair. Our ranks are broke and ruin follows us. What counsel give you? Whither shall we fly?
Bootless is flight. They follow us with wings, and weak we are and cannot shun pursuit.
Ah, Warwick, why hast thou withdrawn thyself? Thy brother's blood the thirsty earth hath drunk, broached with the steely point of Clifford's lance. And in the very pangs of death he cried, like to a dismal clangor heard from afar, Warwick, revenge, brother, revenge my death! So underneath the belly of their steeds that stained their fetlocks in his smoking blood, the noble gentleman gave up the ghost.
Then let the earth be drunken with our blood. I'll kill thy horse because I will not fly. Why stand we like soft-hearted women here, wailing our losses while the foe doth rage, and look upon as if the tragedy were played in jest by counterfeiting actors? Here on my knee, I vow to God above, I'll never pause again, never stand still, till either death hath closed these eyes of mine, or fortune given me measure of revenge.
Oh, Warwick, I do bend my knee with thine, and in this vow do chain my soul to thine. And, ere my knee rise from the earth's cold face, I throw my hands, mine eyes, my heart to thee. Thou set her up and pluck her down of kings, beseeching thee, if with thy will it stands, that to my foes this body must be prey, yet that thy brazen gates of heaven may ope and give sweet passage to my sinful soul. Now, lords, take leave until we meet again, where it be, in heaven or in earth.
Brother, give me thy hand. And gentle Warwick, let me embrace thee with my weary arms. I that never did weep now melt with woe that winter should cut off our springtime so.
Away, away, once more, sweet lords, farewell.
Yet, let us all together to our troops, and give them leave to fly that will not stay, and call them pillars that will stand to us. And if we thrive, promise them such rewards as victors wear at the Olympian Games. This may plant courage in their quailing breasts, for yet is hope of life and victory. For slow no longer, make we hence amain.
Act 2, Scene 4, another part of the battlefield. Enter Richard wearing the white rose and Clifford wearing the red rose.
Now, Clifford, I have singled thee alone. Suppose this arm is for the Duke of York, and this for Rutland, both bound to revenge, wert thou environed with a brazen wall.
Now, Richard, I am with thee here alone. This is the hand that stabbed thy father York, and this the hand that slew thy brother Rutland. And here's the heart that triumphs in their death, and cheers these hands that slew thy sire and brother to execute the like upon thyself. And so, have at thee!
Ah! Nay, Warwick, single out some other chase, for I myself will hunt this wolf to death!
Act 2, Scene 5, a secluded spot a short distance from the battlefield. Enter King Henry, alone, wearing the red rose. This battle fares like to the morning's war, when dying clouds contend with growing light. What time the shepherd, blowing of his nails, can neither call it perfect day nor night. Now sways it this way like a mighty sea, forced by the tide to combat with the wind. Now sways it that way like the selfsame sea, forced to retire by fury of the wind. Sometime the flood prevails, and then the wind, now one the better, then another best, both tugging to be victors breast to breast. Yet neither conqueror nor conquered, so is the equal poise of this fell war. Here on this mole hill will I set me down. To whom God will, there be the victory, for Margaret my queen, and Clifford too, have chid me from the battle, swearing both they prosper best when I am hence. Would I were dead. God's good will were so. For what is in this world but grief and woe? Methinks it were a happy life to be no better than a homely swain, to sit upon a hill as I do now, to carve out dials quaintly, point by point, thereby to see the minutes how they run. How many makes the hour full complete? How many hours brings about the day? How many days will finish up the year? And how many years a mortal man may live? And when this is known, then to divide the times. So many hours must I tend my flocks, so many hours must I take my rest, so many hours must I contemplate, so many hours must I sport myself, and so many days my ewes have been with young, so many weeks ere the poor fools will e'en, and so many years ere I shall shear the fleece. So minutes, hours, days, months, and years passed over to the end they were created would bring white hairs unto a quiet grave. What life were this? How sweet, how lovely. Gives not the hawthorn bush a sweeter shade to shepherds looking on their silly sheep than doth a rich embroidered canopy to kings that fear their subjects' treachery? Yes, it doth, a thousandfold it doth. And to conclude, the shepherd's homely curds, his cold, thin drink out of his leather bottle, his wonted sleep under a fresh tree's shade, all which secure and sweetly he enjoys, is far beyond a prince's delicates, his viands sparkling in a golden cup, his body couched in a curious bed. Care, mistrust, and treason wait on him.
Ill blows the wind that profits nobody. This man, whom hand to hand I slew and fied, may be possessed with some store of crowns, and I, that haply take them from him now, may yet or night yield both my life and them to some man else, as this dead man doth me. Who is this? Oh God, it is my father's face, whom in this conflict I unawares have killed. Heavy times begetting such events. By the king was I pressed for. My father, being the Earl of Warwick's man, came on the part of York, pressed by his master. I, who at his hands received my life, him have by my hands of life bereaved him. Pardon me, God, I knew not what I did. And pardon me, Father, I knew not thee. My tears shall wipe away these bloody marks. And no more words till they have flowed their fill.
Oh, piteous spectacle. Bloody times. Was lions war and battle for their dens, poor harmless lambs abide their enmity? Oh, weep, wretched man, I'll aid thee, tear for tear, and let our hearts and eyes like civil war be blind with tears and break, o'ercharged with grief.
Oh, thou that so stoutly resisted me, give me thy gold, if thou hast any gold. For I have bought it with 100 blows. but let me see. Is this our foeman's face? Oh, no, no, no. It is mine only son. Oh, boy, if any life be in thee, thrown up thine eye. See what showers arise, blown with the windy tempest of my heart upon thy wound that kills mine eye and heart. Oh, pity God this miserable age. What stratagems, how fell, how butcherly erroneous, mutinous, unnatural this deadly quarrel doth daily beget. Oh boy, thy father gave thee life too soon and hath bereft thee of thy life too late.
Woe above woe, grief more than common grief. That my death would stay these ruthful deeds. Pity, pity, gentle heaven, pity. Red rose and the white are on his face, the fatal colors of our striving houses. The one his purple blood right well resembles, the other his pale cheeks, methink, presenteth. With the one rose, and let the other flourish, if you contend 1,000 lives must wither.
How will my mother for a father's death take on with me and ne'er be satisfied?
How will my wife for slaughter of my son shed seas of tears and never be satisfied?
How will the country for these woeful chances misthink the king and not be satisfied?
Was ever son so rude at father's death?
Was ever father so bemoaned his son?
Was ever king so grieved for subjects' woe? Much is your sorrow mine, 10 times so much.
I'll bear thee hence, where I may weep my fill.
These arms of mine shall be thy winding sheet. My heart, sweet boy, shall be thy sepulchre. For from my heart thine image ne'er shall go. My sighing breast shall be thy funeral bell. And so obsequious will thy father be, e'en for the loss of thee, having no more, as Priam was for all his valiant sons. I'll bear thee hence and let them fight that will. For I have murdered where I should not kill.
Sad-hearted men, much o'ergone with care, here sits a king more woeful than you are.
Fly, father, fly! For all your friends are fled, and Warwick charges like a chafed bull. Away, for death doth hold us in pursuit.
Mount you, my lord, toward Berwick post amain. Edward and Richard, like a brace of greyhounds, having the fearful flying hare in sight, with fiery eyes sparkling for very wrath, and bloody steel grasped in their ireful hands, are at our backs, and therefore hence amain.
Away, for vengeance comes along with them. Nay, stay not to expostulate, make speed, or else come after, I'll away before.
Nay, take me with thee, good sweet Exeter. Not that I fear to stay, but love to go whither the queen intends. Forward, away. Act 2, Scene 6, another part of the battlefield. Enter Clifford, wearing the red rose, wounded.
Here burns my candle out. Here it dies, which whilst it lasted gave King Henry light. Oh, Lancaster, I fear thy overthrow, more than this body's parting with my soul. My love and fear glued many friends to thee, and now I fall. Thy tough commixtures melts, impairing Henry, strengthening misproud York. And whither fly the gnats but to the sun? And who shines now but Henry's enemies? Oh, Phoebus, hadst thou never given consent that Phaeton should check thy fiery steeds, thy burning gar never had scorched the earth. And Henry, hadst thou swayed as kings should do, or as thy father and his father did, giving no ground unto the house of York, they never then had sprung like summer flies. I and 10,000 in this luckless realm had left no mourning widows for our death, and thou this day hadst kept thy chair in peace. For what doth cherish weeds but gentle air? And what makes robbers bold but too much lenity? Bootless are plaints, and cureless are my wounds. No way to fly, no strength to hold out flight. The foe is merciless, and will not pity. For at their hands I have deserved no pity. The air hath got into my deadly wounds, and much effuse of blood doth make me faint. Come, York, Richard, Warwick, and the rest. I stabbed your father's bosoms, split my breast.
Now breathe we, lords. Good fortune bids us pause and smooth the frowns of war with peaceful looks. Some troops pursue the bloody-minded queen that led calm Henry, though he were a king, as doth a sail filled with a fretting gust command an argosy to stem the waves. But think you, lords, that Clifford fled with them?
No, 'tis impossible he should escape, for though before his face I speak the words, your brother Richard marked him for the grave, and wheresoever he is, he's surely dead.
Whose soul is that which takes her heavy leave? A deadly groan like life and death's departing.
See who it is. And now the battle's ended, if friend or foe, let him be gently used.
Revoke that doom of mercy, for 'tis Clifford, who not contented that he lopped the branch in hewing Rutland when his leaves put forth, but set his murdering knife unto the root, from whence that tender spray did sweetly spring. I mean our princely father, Duke of York.
From off the gates of York, fetch down the head, your father's head, which Clifford placed there. Instead whereof, let me supply the room. Measure for measure must be answered.
Bring forth that fatal screech owl to our house that nothing sung but death to us and ours. Now death shall stop his dismal threatening sound, and his ill-boding tongue no more shall speak.
I think his understanding is bereft. Speak, Clifford. Dost thou know who speaks to thee? Dark cloudy death o'ershades his beams of life, and he nor sees nor hears what we say.
Oh, would he did. And so perhaps he doth. 'Tis but his policy to counterfeit, because he would avoid such bitter taunts which in the time of death he gave our father.
If so thou think'st, vex him with eager words.
Clifford, ask mercy and obtain no grace.
Clifford, repent in bootless penitence.
Clifford, devise excuses for thy faults.
While we devise fell torture for thy faults.
Thou didst love York, and I am son to York.
Thou pitiedst Rutland, I will pity thee.
Where's Captain Margaret to fence you now?
They mock thee, Clifford. Swear as thou wast wont.
What? Not an oath? Nay then, the world goes hard when Clifford cannot spare his friends an oath. I know by that he's dead. And by my soul, if this right hand would buy but 2 hours' life, that I, in all despite, might rail at him, this hand should chop it off, and with the issuing blood stifle the villain whose unstaunched thirst York and young Rutland could not satisfy.
Aye, but he's dead. Off with the traitor's head, and rear it in the place your father's stands. And now to London, with triumphant march, there to be crowned England's royal king, from whence shall Warwick cut the seat of France, and ask the Lady Bona for thy queen. So shalt thou sinew both these lands together, and, having France thy friend, thou shalt not dread the scattered foe that hopes to rise again. For though they cannot greatly sting to hurt, yet look to have them buzz to offend thine ears. First will I see the coronation, and then to Brittany I'll cross the sea to effect this marriage, so it please my lord.
Even as thou wilt, sweet Warwick, let it be. For in thy shoulder do I build my seat, and never will I undertake the thing wherein thy counsel and consent is wanting. Richard, I will create thee Duke of Gloucester and George of Clarence. Warwick, as ourself, shall do and undo as him pleaseth best.
Let me be Duke of Clarence, George of Gloucester, for Gloucester's dukedom is too ominous.
That's a foolish observation. Richard be Duke of Gloucester. Now to London, to see these honors in procession.